Hey everybody, have you considered starting a podcast? Well, we here at Screwball give Podbean a high level of recommendation. Podbean has given us the ability to easily bring you Screwball each and every week on all your favorite podcast services. Use the link podbean.com/screwball to sign up and save up to 35% annually. You can also use the link podbean.com/pro/screwball to sign up for a business subscription. Happy podcasting. Hey everybody, welcome back to Screwball, a baseball podcast, your home for everything baseball. I'm your host Mike Lepre, here with my co-host Frank White.
Hey, how's it going?
Now on this episode of Screwball, we're going to take a deep dive into the free agency and trade candidacy and just really overall offseason outlook for the 2020-2021 offseason and look ahead to the 2021 season. We thought it would be important to go over who are the top free agents, we'll probably talk about top 25 to top 40. Some trade pieces that go along with where these free agent players could land, as well as some new rules, which is actually the first thing that we're going to get into now is not necessarily maybe new rules or rules that were in the 2020 season that could see some tweaking or some new implementation in the 2021 season. So I'm just going to kick it over to Frank with the notable rules and what we should look forward to for 2021.
Yeah, as we've seen this year, we've seen the universal DH. As of now, we don't have a universal DH. We're going back to the old style AL DH and AL no DH. But I think that's going to change. I think there's no reason that they're not going to sign. Players Association is not going to sign and keep the universal DH because it's going to come back in another year anyway when the CBA gets up and they renegotiate. So you might as well just keep it. I think the 7-inning doubleheader is going to stay. When a doubleheader has to be made, I think it's going to be 7 innings. They like that idea. Saves arms and quickens the game, which is all they care about. So I don't, I see that staying. I also see there's a possibility they schedule maybe a 7-inning doubleheader, 1 or 2 throughout the year to give an extra off day, a travel day. So you might see some scheduled 7-inning doubleheaders. That might not be this year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Obviously, roster expansion is actually supposed to happen this year, but with the COVID, nobody really noticed it, but I believe the roster was expanded by 1 player, and it had to be a position player. I believe the roster is 26, so we'll probably see 26, maybe even 27 this year as part of the new rules. And the extra inning with a runner starting on second base, I think that's going to stay in some capacity. I don't think it's going to start the first extra inning or the 10th inning, but you might see it starting maybe the 12th or 13th inning. You'll see that in regular season games. Playoffs, it's going to be normal. But in regular season games, I think you might see a runner starting on second, maybe starting the 12th or 13th. So give a couple normal extra innings. You'll have the 3-batter minimum. I think it's going to stay unless it finishes the inning. I think that's going to stay unless they drop it to maybe 2-batter minimum, something like that. But I think the 3-batter minimum stays as well. So I think the rules are going to be really just kind of re-upped this year, just going to tweak them a little bit.
Okay, so with that, there's not really much there that's going to be groundbreaking for the game. It's going to be more that in 2022 we might see some stuff that gets sprinkled in that could really change a lot of stuff. But for now, it's kind of maybe more of the same, little tweaks here and there. But we'll see. Maybe like I said, in the further future, we'll see some stuff. So from there, I'd like to start it with the trade candidates instead of going into the free agents, just mainly because it's a shorter list of trade candidates that we really think are more on the chopping block or on the trade block. But trade candidates, you could make theories all day long about who could be traded and why and where, and so the trade candidate list could be 2-3 times as long as a free agent list if you really want it to be. But there's some obvious guys here. We can talk about 10 of them. And the first guy that's the most obvious, there's been reports on it. It's been reported on for years now at this point. But Francisco Lindor for the Indians has 1 year left of control. So if he gets dealt in the offseason, the team that would be receiving him would be getting him for the 2021 season, and then he would become a free agent. So kind of a big deal to the Indians to get some value for him if they don't feel that they're going to get him back. Important for a team to get a switch-hitting shortstop, probably one of the biggest stars of the game right now. There's a lot of possible landing spots. I know both New York teams have been possible landing spots for him. Obviously, the realism of those teams getting him is you have to stretch your imagination a little bit. But there's a lot of spots that could use a guy like him as a middle infielder, star power, switch hitter, power, contact. He's got the whole deal. But yeah, Francisco Lindor is in my opinion the top guy that everyone should kind of be looking at right now for trades.
Yeah, I think what played a role in this was the Indians already said they're looking to trade him for opening day. I think with the the breakout or the comeback of Seager. I think that took the Dodgers out of the race. I think the Dodgers were going to be in the race a little bit because they didn't know what they had out of Seager, but Seager came back better than the player they expected. So that took the Dodgers out of that race. But I think with an offseason that I think is going to be a little less on spending because of the lost money and the CBA coming up, I think trades could be a big thing because you get a guy for a year or two, and then you lose his salary when the CBA is up, and you kind of know what the new contracts are going to look like. But with Lindor, I think the New York teams, it's going to take some bending and some changing to get them there. I think two teams that he can go to include the Reds and the A's. The A's are a little surprising because they're not a team that spends much money, but they're losing Simeon, the shortstop, as of now in free agency. So why not get Lindor for a year and then sign him to a contract? Obviously, you're going to try signing Matt Chapman and Matt Olson. Liriano, you got to ways before you got to sign him. Sean Murphy, you got to ways. So you have some money if the A's actually do want to spend. And with Billy Beane, the Moneyball guy, kind of out of there, maybe they do go more of an approach to spend some more money. And they're going to have the prospects to go get him.
Oh, yeah.
And the Reds as well. The Reds could definitely use him to add to that lineup and add to that defense. So those are two teams that could definitely use him.
Sure. I'd love to see him on the Reds. I mean, both of us probably would like to see him on the Reds at this point.
He wouldn't have to go far. And if he goes to the A's, I mean,
come on now.
that just adds excitement to a team that is exciting, but not exciting in the flashy way. He brings that flashy Ricky Henderson type of baseball.
Yeah, they could use someone like that.
And not that and Simeon's great, but you had a guy like that, switch hitter with Matt Chapman and Matt Olson, Liriano. I mean, you went from a team that's a chance at ALCS to a World Series on a good run like the Rays to ALCS World Series bust or bust. So after Lindor, the next guy you always see kind of in the trade block the last couple of years is Nolan Arenado. And we talked about him a bunch in the past because he's one of the best defensive third basemen of all time. Offensively, he's one of the better ones of all time as well.
Sure.
I think he's going to get traded this offseason. I think the Rockies time to start making some moves for them. I think he gets traded. I think he gets traded to the Cardinals, a team who needs a third baseman. Matt Carpenter obviously struggled for a couple of years now. He's kind of out the door. They don't really have a third baseman. Edmund, he can play everywhere, and some guys who can play everywhere. But with Colton Wong, a free agent, second base is open, so someone could shift over there. I think third base is going to be open for them, and they can go get Arenado. They definitely have prospects to use, and they definitely have outfield prospects and MLB-ready prospects to go trade to get him. So I think he could easily go to the Cardinals. So that's where I have him going.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, any team that gets him isn't going to complain. There's no teams that wouldn't be at least interested. You know what I mean? I know you've discussed it. I don't know if you discussed on the show or more just with me, when we talk. But the Yankees, could you imagine if you pull off a blockbuster trade there and move their infield around a little bit?
They have a lot of prospects. And MLB-ready guys as Frazier and Andujar are guys who are like, we got to kind of have a spot where they could toss around to get this. Yeah,
which we'll get to some of those guys later because they're legitimate trade candidates at this point too. So you get someone like that with a lot of years of control. At this point, I would call him a little bit of a star. Obviously, he's on the Rockies, so you kind of have to question the big, broad baseball spectrum where he's at. But he's unbelievable. Glove, hitting, you really know what you're getting with him. Really, any team that needs any sort of third baseman could use him. I mean, or you could, even a team that has like an infield that is shiftable, they could use him too. Anything that you can move people around.
Yeah, I think you can even see. For me personally, I don't see it because I think the Mets are going to be doing a little bit other things. But I mean, this guy really wants to come in and cause a ruckus. This new owner, I mean, why not trade a bunch of your pieces and go get Arenado? But I think the Braves are another very possible location because they have unbelievable prospects.
Oh yeah,
and they have outfield depth prospects, so they can go trade them and get Arenado. And you can use Austin Riley as a trade piece and get Arenado to add to that. And that's just a guy to add to a team that's ridiculous.
Imagine that infield. Yeah. With him.
Yeah. Both them teams, Cardinals or Braves. Cardinals, DeJong, and you have Goldschmidt. I mean, you have Arenado, a hater in the outfield. You have a great defense. So, and then if it's the Braves, I mean, you got Swanson, Albies, Freeman, Acuna in the outfield. I mean, Christian Pache, or you use him in the trade. So they got a lot of pieces. So one of those two teams, I think, are probably your best bet. But I think Cardinals is where he's going.
Yeah. It's a good guess. I don't know if he'll be moved, but that's the possibilities are out there.
I think before the deadline for sure he's gone.
Okay.
Unless somehow the Rockies are in it, but I don't see it.
Which Yeah, you never know with them.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah.
I like him, but I don't see it.
So next guy that I want to talk about is also third baseman, but he has a little versatility to him. Chris Bryant for the Cubs. He's got 1 year left to control, so similar to Lindor, if a team were to trade him now, we'd get him for the year, and that'd be it. So I could see him going. I could see him going to a lot of places similar to the Arenado thing, but I see him more going to teams, maybe like, not necessarily the Braves, because Chris Bryant kind of goes everywhere. If you want to send him to a team that you peg him, hey, you're the third baseman. Enough with the Joe Madden type, messing you around. You play third. Or I could see maybe a team trying to move him to first. I could see that too. If you want to play with him in the outfield, I don't know what his defensive metrics are in the outfield. But eye test wise, you'd want him at third. He's a good third baseman. But I mean, great bat, a little bit of a down year. He's had some questionable years at this point. You kind of do question Chris Bryant a little bit at this point, but he's got a lot of value still. He still ages on his side. He's got playoff experience on his side. So I think there's a lot of teams that should be and could be looking at him, especially if the Cubs start to, you see a lot of these guys on the Cubs start to, their free agency is coming up. They're getting a little older. You start to wonder, do they start rebuilding? What do they do now? So he could be part of that coalition that starts to kind of fade off.
Yeah, the Cubs are definitely going to be, as rumor has it, they're going to be cutting salary. So they're going to be, in the market to trade some of these players away. I think Chris Bryant does get traded. I think he had a down year a little bit. That's not going to affect his value too much. I think you could see him go to a team that's rebuilding but on the verge of going somewhere. Like a team maybe like Pittsburgh, maybe like Detroit, where it's like, okay, we get like one superstar and then a couple prospects come up, we kind of go. Mm-hmm. But I think a team that really is going to go after it, with the rumors saying they're gonna really go after free agency and trade market hard, I think it goes to the Giants. Put him at third, maybe put Longoria first, put Bryant at first, Longoria at third. Flip him around. But I think he goes to the Giants, and then you'll have, Longoria, who's still not a terrible player. You have Yastrzemski, then you'll have Bryant, then you got the prospect catcher. I can't think of his name. Joey Bart.
Yeah, Joey Bart. Yeah.
So they're kind of a couple pieces away, but you get a superstar essentially, then a couple prospects. You're in the hunt.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe a team like that. I think a team like the Giants trades for him.
Mm-hmm. You could definitely make that NL West a little more competitive, because right now I guess it would probably just be the Dodgers Padres right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had three teams there.
Yeah, and look what they did this year. The Giants, they were in the hunt, even though it was 60 games, but they're in the hunt.
Yeah.
You had a superstar, and then another prospect keeps developing, and maybe you sign somebody else. You're in the hunt.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
But the next guy I want to talk about is another big player, and from the Cubs is Yu Darvish.
Mm-hmm.
If the Cubs are smart, they want to cut salary. Yu Darvish had his unbelievable year, so you get the most value from him right now. And again, I got a couple teams here because it matters what some of these teams want to do. By one team, I got the Mets. What are they doing? That's you don't know. Are they going to rebuild? Not really rebuild, but kind of retool, or are they going to go hard after free agency and the trades? So I don't really know what they're going to do. In this situation, obviously, they're going to try going for it. So they trade for Yu Darvish. That really shores up that rotation, because then you'll have DeGrom, Yu Darvish. Then you'll have maybe Syndergaard's still there. And that's what they want to do there. So really, because they're losing Porcello, they're losing Walker this year. Steven Matz has been terrible. His run with the Mets has just got to be over. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have openings there. So you get him. I mean, that's two aces.
Yeah.
Other teams you could look at is the Brewers, because they need starting pitching.
Yep.
And maybe the Astros. One last, kind of ditch effort here in his last year or two. When some of these guys' free agency on their contracts still on the books, they can have another year, maybe 2 years, where their window's still open. So maybe you go get Yu Darvish. You get Verlander back at some point, hopefully. You have Greinke, and then you get Darvish.
Yeah.
Colors is back. And so all of a sudden now they got, star-studded team again. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where Darvish can go. Those three teams, but it all matters what they want to do. Mm-hmm. Mets can. You don't really know where they're at right now, but the Brewers and the Astros are going for it.
Yeah, I mean, he would fit in at this point, especially if he pitches like he did. He would fit in anywhere. Obviously a team that needs pitching could be the Yankees maybe could pick up someone to shore up, with losing Tanaka and Paxton in free agency, if they want to go that route instead of spending a whole ton of money on it, because I think the Yankees are more inclined to go to the trade route this season with obviously all the teams lost money this year. So I think a lot of teams are more inclined to do the trade route. So Darvish should be, if the Cubs do make him available, I think Darvish should be one of the more top guys that team should be looking at. Guys get a lot of pitches, a lot of stamina,
Oh, yeah. And especially with a free agent market for starting pitcher, that's kind of one guy, maybe two guys, star-studded.
Yeah.
I think it's one star-studded guy in Bauer,
Mm.
and then everyone else is kind of like, oh, okay. He's that extra star-studded guy.
Yeah. He's the guy that could be your number one,
So if
number
you lose
two.
out on the number one guy, you get him.
Yeah.
And it's like 1A. You don't really lose out much. You can see something like that. You can even throw a team like the Padres in there, who's always trying to get a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
They never could really seem they got Clevenger this past year, but so maybe even a team like that.
Yeah. You get him, Clevenger,
That
Lamet,
GM, he's trading. He wants them.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised there.
Yeah, they're going for it. So we'll see what happens. The next guy I want to talk about is Miguel Andujar for the Yankees. He has 3 years of control, which could add to his value quite a bit. Obviously, came out, had a great rookie season, hit great. Defense obviously is questionable at best. So I think Miguel Andujar would be good suited for a team that needs a really good bat and can forego some of the defensive issues. Maybe I could see him maybe going to an AL team. You could just have him DH. Because he does have a good bat. I do really believe that he does, in a 162-game season, he would put up pretty good numbers. Or at least numbers that you could slot him in at the six spot, 7 spot, maybe a 2 spot if he's more of a high average, having a high average season. But as far as where he would go, I think it's more reliant on what the Yankees want to get in return. I think the Yankees, you could see Miguel Andujar go in a package. And the same thing I got right under him is Clint Frazier. I think that they kind of are one and the same. They might go in a package deal. So if the Yankees want to go and get a pitcher, which they should, I could see him going to some sort of team that the Yankees want. Maybe even Yu Darvish, someone like that. Maybe you could see Andujar going to the Cubs. I could definitely see that. But I mean, I think that Miguel Andujar has a little more value than people like to give him credit. I think that he had a really rough season when he got injured. Last season, you saw there was a little bit of life towards the end, even though they kind of, the Yankees have a lot of depth, so it was hard to get him as much playing time as he should have. But I think Miguel Andujar does have, I think a lot of teams do see a lot of value in him, and I think it's, like I said, I think the landing spot for him is more relying on what the Yankees want to do and what they want to get in return, where he would go.
Yeah. Andujar, terrible defender. I mean, that's just flat out. Let's just get right to it. But he can hit. His on base is not good. As somebody who likes defense and does care about on base just as much as he cares about average, it was really hard to kind of get behind him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a Sirianni-esque player.
Mm-hmm.
He really can hit. And defense you worry about later. And on base you don't care about because he's hitting home runs and he's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really care about it. Doesn't steal bases like Sirianni. I mean, Sirianni was one of a kind player. But, you kind of compare them. So I think to go along, you mentioned Clint Frazier already. We can kind of merge a lot of these players together. I think you could put Andujar and Frazier in some sort of deal and go get Syndergaard from the Mets. The Mets give up on Syndergaard. Or not give up on him, but okay, let's just kind of move on from him because, he's hurt, he's big, he's throwing hard, lasts long, he could be a starter, whatever. They have other starters in the minors. They always have starters, the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
So do you get rid of Syndergaard to go get Andujar and Frazier and maybe something else?
Yeah.
So that's one of my guys I was going to talk about is Syndergaard. I had Syndergaard maybe getting traded to the Yankees. So maybe that's part of a deal. Also, you could put in the idea of maybe Andujar, Sanchez, Frazier, one of those guys getting traded to the Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
So go get someone like John Gray and Arenado in a big deal or some sort of Trevor Story deal, something crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine where you have crazy you want to think.
Yeah.
You can put a lot of these pieces we're going to talk about and we talked about in trades. So, Andujar, I think, could go to the Mets to get Syndergaard. And I already mentioned Sanchez. I think Sanchez gets traded to the Rockies for some sort of piece. Maybe some sort of John Gray. Maybe one of their young relievers. Maybe, one of their outfielders, David Dahl.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So I think, like I said, a lot of these pieces they all go together. So to get back to kind of where we started here, I think Andujar goes to the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
I think Frazier maybe get part of that deal, and the Yankees get in return maybe Syndergaard, maybe Edwin Diaz in that deal, or Syndergaard and Betances,
Mm-hmm.
something along those lines. So that's pretty much where I got that. Next guy I already went into was Sanchez to the Rockies. I think you can get something like that, so I don't want to jump in that too much. But the next guy who's not really a huge name, but has a lot of potential is John Gray.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can get traded to the Brewers. Brewers need starting pitching. Rockies, I think, are going to give up on him. He's got great potential. Colorado hurts his stats, but Brewers need starting pitcher, and he can have a huge impact on the Brewers. So that's why I mentioned him here.
Sure.
I also like John Gray, so I also wanted to mention that part. But yeah, I think John Gray can get traded this offseason. I think he gets traded maybe to the Brewers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean he's a nice piece that could add and complete a rotation, or add just maybe that missing puzzle piece for rotation.
I mean he was always an ace prospect.
Mm.
So if you get that ace, that 1-2 out of him, I mean, great. Otherwise, hopefully he builds. He's out of Colorado. Maybe he's a really good 3-man, and that's fine too.
Yeah, you could see him throwing high 3, ERA, 3.50 ERA or something like that, and that's fine. That's below average for the league. So, if you get that out of him, that's great. Next guy I want to talk about is JD Martinez for the Red Sox. More the problem here with JD, I don't question really his bat. I know some people have come into question, if his value is going to start, kind of tanking here. But I still think that he's got a great bat, and I think you put him on a team that's competitive. I think that you're going to see the real JD Martinez, or at least the JD Martinez of the last few years. You got 2 years of control for him. Team, really the worry is a team that's going to eat his contract. That's what you got to find, because I think he's getting paid pretty handsomely from the Red Sox. So I think that's more the issue with finding a spot for him, and you would typically want a team that's going to be in the American League, because you're probably going to want him to DH. Because him fielding is not, he's not, I mean, I would say he's probably a liability out there. He's not dead weight. He's not just going to be he's not going to be terrible out there, but you want him, he's like Nelson Cruz at this point. You want him, he's going to be a DH. So you typically want him to be in the AL. Finding a team that could eat that contract, though, is going to be tough,
Yeah, I don't know where JD Martinez gets traded. I don't know if Boston trades him, because they brought Cora back, which, the MLB just let, rule breakers and cheaters do what they want, run wild in this league. So if you're bringing a guy like that back, I don't see them rebuilding.
Yeah.
I see them trying to win. If you hire a different manager, as in Sam Fold, a new manager, I was thinking maybe you're trying to look more for a rebuild. But since they brought the old guy, or the guy who's been there, I think you got to go continue. So I think he stays there. And just to go to the next guy here, I think this is the last one we're going to talk about, Hader. He's been in a lot of talks, especially with the Brewers having some young relievers. The rookie Williams had a great year. So, he could be, expandable, and then get them some sort of big pieces. So I think a team that really could look at him is obviously the Yankees, who's been in talks with him all the time. So I think maybe Hader goes to the Yankees, and then we also mentioned some of these guys we talked about before, and Andujar, Frazier, Sanchez. Could they go to the Brewers in some sort of trade to get Hader?
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how all these kind of pieces all kind of work together for certain teams. So I think Hader to the Yankees is a move that you could see, or maybe even Hader to a team like the Dodgers, because they have prospects as in Gavin Lux and guys like that they have to kind of get rid of. And they have another catcher behind Will Smith. I can't think of his name, but who could be on the move.
Yeah, Josh Hader has 3 years of control coming up, so you're obviously going to want to, you're going to want to get a haul for him. I would assume he's going to take a haul, and he's probably, you would think, go to a contending team. A team like the Dodgers or the Yankees or someone like that, or the Astros could use some.
Lennings this year. I mentioned you could go to the Astros before this year started, so I'll throw that team in there as well.
Yeah, because they're all right there, ready. I mean, Dodgers obviously just won the World Series, but they want to stay in that realm and stay in that competitive space. So I could the teams that I could see him going to are more like the Astros, Yankees, Dodgers sphere, where you want teams that are going to win. Could you see him going to someone like the Angels, have him be the closer out there? You never know. But I think you would more want him to shore up an already good bullpen, I would think. And then you got him for 3 years, so you don't have to worry about him there. All right, so that's there's obviously, I mean, like I said before, there's a million trade candidates you can go to and theories you can make and whatever, because it's always nebulous what, where these guys could go and what GMs could do. So I think I think we should move on to free agents. There's a ton of them. There's a ton of ones that can make a big impact on a team. So I think we should start with, we've got a top 10 here. I think this is a top 10 that you would find most lists would contain these, especially the top 5, would contain these guys. And then after that, we'll get into some guys that we personally think might have some interesting landing spots and teams that could make a big difference. So the number 1 free agent, at least that I have, I would assume he would be on most everyone's number 1, is JT Realmuto. I mean, big time catcher. One of the few catchers in the league that, that's my catcher. Because a lot of teams that kind of do that platooning. A lot of teams have a catcher that's more defensive and you worry about the offense later. but Real Muto can run. He can hit. Has a little bit of pop in him. Obviously, great defense. He's the whole package. Kind of on the younger side. I believe he's on the opposite side of 30 at this point, if I'm not mistaken. So you do have to worry about that, but, as far as a long-term deal. But there's a lot of, he could go back to the Phillies. I could see that being a realistic landing spot for him. I could see him going to the Yankees if the Yankees decide to do some big moves with Sanchez. You could obviously see him going to someone like the Rays or the Mets or someone like this who really, any team obviously could use this guy, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
You could always make moves and find room for JT Realmuto, but these teams that really, if your infield and you shore up the guy behind the plate with JT Realmuto, you're not only does your lineup look better, but your defense looks better. Yeah. So there's quite a few landing spots for him.
Yeah, I think New York, one of the two teams in New York, is a great idea. No matter what the Mets want to do and what the Yankees want to do. I think the Rays was a team I really thought they got rid of Zunino this year. They're not really spending much money, and they obviously are good enough to win. They're in the World Series. You get Realmuto, you can put him in the middle of that lineup, or at the top of that lineup, and then he's going to help with your pitching, which your pitching was already good. But now you have a catcher that's really good. Zunino's really good behind the plate, but this guy's the best, or second best behind Molina, but one of the best. So you put him there, really helps their team. So a team like that, and I think the Angels. Why not keep going?
Yeah.
Your pitching's not great. You get a catcher like this, it helps the pitching. Can't hurt it.
Sure.
And then you add him to that lineup to go along with Pujols, who still hits okay, Ohtani and Rendon and Trout and Fletcher and a bunch of guys like that. You'd be hitting all day. Taylor Ward, wasn't that Taylor? Was he the rookie this year that came up? Oh, Jared Walsh.
Yeah.
See a bunch of guys like that. Justin Upton's still there. So that's a team I think could easily go after him.
Yeah, they're almost ready to go. So if they shore up a few pieces, especially if you get a catcher like that, they'd be good to go. Number 2 here that I got, both of us talked about him a lot, is DJ Lemahieu, who I'm going to be short and sweet here. I think that I do, and I have been saying this for a while. I do think the Yankees get him back. I think the Yankees know what they have or have had the last 2 seasons. I don't think Brian Cashman's stupid, and I do think that he understands what he adds to the lineup, and I do think they're going to go and try and get him. Obviously, the qualifying offer extending that is smart, especially with the kind of volatility that the free agency could see this season. You might see someone like LeMahieu say, you know what, I'll just take the year. Let's do this. I don't want to risk my skin on free agency this season. But I really, really do in my heart believe he's going back to the Yankees, and that's not just me being a Yankee fan. I just think that he said he wants to be there. The Yankees want him there. Yankee fans want him there. It's just, in my opinion, it's just kind of a match made in heaven. But then again, any team could use DJ LeMahieu, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think LeMahieu goes back to the Yankees. I think if he doesn't go back to the Yankees won't see a World Series. I don't see that lineup without a hitter like LeMahieu really being as good as it can be. But I think if something crazy happens, he doesn't go to the Yankees, again, you're looking at a team like the A's, because he's an A's type of player, or a team like the Reds. They missed out on Lindor, maybe you get LeMahieu, who can move around the infield, and he can hit and do whatever you want. So those are 2 teams I think you can throw in there if he doesn't go back to the Yankees.
So number 3, change it up a little bit. We got probably the number 1 starting pitcher on the market right now is Trevor Bauer. Market as far as free agency and even trade candidacy maybe. But yeah, Trevor Bauer had an unbelievable season with the Reds. Really shot his stock up because Trevor Bauer for a few seasons now has kind of been like you've seen the flashes of like what he did in 2020, where the flashes of greatness. You've seen the flashes of the 6 ERAs. So you sometimes question Trevor Bauer. If you're a GM, I would assume you question like, well, what's his long-term viability? You also question what he brings to a clubhouse, what he brings to social media, to your organization. You do have to question these things. It's not like LeMahieu where you just don't even hear from him and he does his job. You would probably call Trevor Bauer the antithesis of that, really. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen the Blue Jays be an option for him. I've seen the Yankees, if the Garrett Cole stuff really, if that's just all rumors, you could see him going to the Yankees. If the Mets go for it, you can see him go to the Mets. You see a team like maybe you mentioned the Giants, see they start to go for it, maybe they try to lock him up. Or does he stick with the 1-year plan that he said he was just going to sign 1-year deals the rest of his career? Does that play into effect too? Does he just go back to the Reds for 1 year? He has got a lot of options, and a lot of teams have a lot of options with him. So I don't know exactly where he lands, but wherever he lands, I think he'll make a pretty good impact. He'll be like a good 2 guy,
Yeah, I think a team like Boston could go into it. They want pitching. They want to keep their team competitive. Boston can go for it. Chris Sale comes back. You have Chris Sale, and then Bauer, Evaldi. You're hoping to get Eduardo Rodriguez back. Then a couple of young guys. Groom in the prospect pool. So that could really help their pitching. Yankees, like you said, you have Garrett Cole and him. That's just all past or not real. Those feuds. And a team like the Twins who need pitching. And you add him to a team like that who really needs pitching. He could walk right in the door and be, he's probably your ace.
Yeah.
Either him or Jose Barrios. So you got 1A, 1 and 1A. So those are, I think he can easily go to the Twins. And he's going to have the offense to back him up, which, the Reds didn't have this year for some reason. And that kind of bothered him. So you go to a team like that, you're like, well, I have offense now. That's where I think, you can see him go.
Sure. All right, number 4, we've got George Springer for the Astros. I believe he was extended a qualifying offer by the Astros. It remains to be seen what happens with that, but I think he gets out of Houston. I don't think I've kind of thought that the whole year with all this controversy. I think he wants to, it would be smart for him to distance himself from that organization with everything that went on. Obviously, for them, I'm sure it was nice in the clubhouse to get to the ALCS and kind of, in their way, prove everyone wrong or whatever their narrative they want to write. But I think he's got a lot of options. I think the next guy we're going to talk about here kind of has a similar amount of options. Springer is someone that could go and be a leader on a team. He's a good leadoff guy. As you could always put an asterisk next to it, but he has been in the playoffs quite a few times now. A lot of home runs in the playoffs. You do always have to question the injury stuff with him because he has had a history of injuries. But I think that Springer probably I would think he would reject the qualifying offer. Although then again, with this season, I wouldn't be surprised if anyone took the qualifying offer, just with how the market might be this season. I think there's a lot of options for him, and I think that a lot of teams have a lot of options to kind of bring him in and be their center fielder, right fielder, kind of whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I think a team that's been looking for center fielders for many years now and keeps getting these low-end guys, and, he kind of plays really good defense, but then they hit terrible and it doesn't work out, is the Mets. So I think he goes to the Mets. If they're kind of rebuilding or retooling, or if they're just going straight out for it, I think he goes to the Mets either way on some sort of 3-4 year deal. And they kind of get the center fielder, or at least, above average defender at any outfield position that they want.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I mean, the Mets, especially with this new ownership, have a lot of options, and we don't know yet if they're going to do the blow-up like the Marlins did, or they're going to do like hey, let's go for it. We're almost there. Let's just go for it. So number 5, in hindsight, in my opinion, I should have put him above Springer, but number 5 is Marcell Ozuna, who I think was an MVP snub this season. We both kind of think he was an MVP snub this season, at least top 3 MVP snub. Here's a guy who has just seemingly progressively gotten better and better. Adds a lot of value to a lineup on a team. I think there's quite a few places that he could go, especially a team that kind of is more in need of a bat rather than the defense, because his defense is good. He's got good defense, but that's not why you're signing Marcell Ozuna. I could see a team. I would like to see a team lock him up because he's got a lot of value, and you really should get a guy like that. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he just tried signing some sort of short deal to get out of this free agency with some sort of money, like this free agent year. Kind of similar to Springer. You could see him going to the Mets. I could see it. You get a guy like that for them. I mean, there's unlimited possibilities with him. You could see him going back to the Braves, I guess. If they want to make some room in that outfield, you could obviously make room for him. Maybe the Cardinals have some sort of consideration there. Could bring him back there. If the Marlins want to go crazy, bring him back. Kind of where he began, kind of where stuff began for him. Yeah. You could see that because the Marlins are maybe going for it now. But Marcell Ozuna is a great piece, and he'll be valuable wherever he goes.
Yeah, Marcell Ozuna is one of the best hitters in baseball. It's just how it is. I don't care what anyone says. I believe that for many years. This year he almost won a Triple Crown. So, great player. His defense has gotten better because it was really good. Then it struggled a little bit for 2 years. He had some injuries, but it was back up, better this year. But I think a team that could really go for him is the Rangers. I really do. If he doesn't go back to the Braves, you get him the Rangers. You got righty power with him, lefty power with Gallo. Shin-Soo Choo's gone. You still have Andrews. You still have Odor as of now. So they could definitely use, another really good hitter and another good outfielder. So you put Marcell Ozuna there with Joey Gallo and some of the other players they have. They can make a push for an AL West that they think is going to be opening up with a team like the Angels trying to build, but nothing really sticking as of right now. The A's are really good and they're going to be good for a couple of years, but who knows what their plans are with free agency and signing players and keeping the team together. The Astros kind of coming apart soon. You got to think, and the Mariners not nowhere near close. They can jump right into this race, and they have some good pieces, so they can easily sign a guy like Marcell Ozuna. And if something crazy happens, you sign him to a three-year deal or something, you trade him.
Yeah, sure. It's not a bad idea.
But I think he goes. A team like the Rangers could easily go get him. And Rangers seen what he could do in their stadium.
Yeah.
Playoffs. So
sure.
It wouldn't be bad to see him go there.
No, he's another guy like these top 5 guys we talked about. They got a lot of options. You're not gonna be sad. You're not gonna be like, oh, maybe that was no. We've got too many outfielders if you get Marcell Ozuna. The next guy we got here is Marcus Semien, number 6. Marcus Semien, I kind of do think he's gonna go back to the A's. There's a little part of me that kind of just always sees him with the A's. I could see maybe the Angels going after him, which would not be a bad with them losing Angels and Simmons, which I think we'll get to in a little bit. You got a team like the Angels who really should be going for it at this point. It's a shame that a guy like Mike Trout hasn't been able to make the playoffs, and you got a team that always seems to, before the season starts, we always seem to be talking about, oh, the Angels, is this the time? Is they finally gonna kind of cross over and start being a playoff team? And I think that he's familiar with the AL West already. The Angels probably got the money to do it. And, they got a spot to fill. So it makes sense that he would go somewhere like there. But I really wouldn't be surprised if he just went back to the A's. And because I just see him, like when I imagine Marcus Semien, I just imagine him being on the A's just for his career. It's just like kind of one of those players.
Yeah. Obviously we had Lindor and some trades and, maybe Lemahieu. But I think Semien goes right back to the A's. A little bit of a down year, but the A's kind of helped him recoup some of that prospect level play. I think he'll return the favor by staying there and keeping kind of a big piece of the band together. So I think he goes right back to the A's. The only way I don't see him going back there is if they get a guy like Lindor. So I see Semien staying with the A's.
All right, the next guy that I want to talk about, number 7, is another Marcus Stroman. Had a little bit of an interesting Twitter campaign going here to make his case for free agency. Kind of another guy that's a little more, not as much outspoken as Trevor Bauer, but a little outspoken on Twitter. Has a lot of value, I think, in the kind of pitching free agent market. He's probably top 5 starting pitching free agent, I would think, on anyone's list, whether you like the guy or not. He's probably a solid 2 or 3 guy, 3-something ERA, can eat some innings for you. Probably won't cost you all that much compared to Bauer or someone like that. So you could see him, going. I don't think he'll go back to the Mets, but you could see him go to the Yankees, even though he made a weird play to try and court them for some reason. Maybe he goes back to the Blue Jays, because you add a guy like that to that rotation. The Blue Jays might be in a spot where if they just get one starting pitcher, they might be in a good spot on top of Ryu they got last year. So I mean, he kind of similar to Bauer. He might be like plan 1A or plan B. If a team doesn't get Bauer, he's the next guy that maybe teams should be looking at. But I don't know as of right now where Stroman goes. I think that I haven't seen a lot of rumors with him. Angels, obviously, they need pitching, so that's an obvious right there. So yeah, I don't know as of right now exactly where he would be pegged at.
Yeah, I always had Stroman going to the Angels. That's where I always seen him fit. I mean, if you want to throw a couple other teams out there, the A's need some pitching. Why not? Cincinnati, if they lose Bauer, why not go get Stroman? Or maybe even a team like the Cardinals. Because he could fit right in with the Cardinals, even though he's, talks a little bit, but he could fit right in.
Sure.
He'll fit right into that team, and he'll pitch great. But I think a team like the Angels is where he's going.
Or even, the Padres. You could see that, too.
Yeah, I could see him going to the Padres, too. I mean, there's a bunch of teams, obviously, that could take him, but I think he goes to the Angels is where my number one guess is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Number 8 here, we got Michael Brantley, who I think has a lot more value maybe than people perceive. Obviously, he's getting a little older, admittedly, but I could see, it would be nice if there was a little room in that outfield, maybe a team like the Yankees. It would be nice for them if they were to lose LeMahieu, because you kind of get that hitter back.
Or you get both of them.
Or you get both of them, and you really, the top of that lineup's really killer. But, if there was a little room, because there's also been rumors with Stanton being on the trading block. There's been some rumors there, some murmurs. So you free up some space in that outfield. Brantley's not the best fielder, but for some reason, they don't like Stanton in the outfield anyway. So Brantley, if there's some wheeling and dealing going on with the Yankees, you could see Brantley maybe go there. Could see him going back with the Astros if they're still going for it. That's obviously a landing spot. Maybe more AL teams more suited for him. He's getting a little older. You kind of want the DH, aspect of him, especially if a guy like batting 300, you just tell him, hey, you hit. That's what you do. That'd be a big plus for really any AL team.
Yeah, I keep it real simple. Mike Brantley, one of the best hitters in baseball. Left-handed version of LeMahieu, doesn't say anything. I think he goes right back to Houston. Simple as that. I don't see how they can lose him, especially if they're losing Springer. You don't lose him.
Sure. Yeah, it's short and sweet. I like it. Number 9, I think we both kind of feel the same way about this guy, Justin Turner. I don't see him really going anywhere with the Dodgers, but the Dodgers, I should say. I mean, but there's a guy that I think all the teams should be looking at right now, especially teams that are competitive that could make a playoff run. You get a guy like that in the lineup, especially in the playoffs. Oh man, because especially with this postseason, you saw that he really turned it on. He's a guy that turns it on for the playoffs.
He's the best player in that order.
Oh yeah,
he's what makes that order. I mean, I know Seager this year really stepped up, but Justin Turner for years has made the Dodgers lineup. He's what made that team good.
Sure,
especially in the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't see him going anywhere.
No,
I really don't. He does seem like an A's kind of player, though. Something happened.
Yeah.
I know you see a lot of these guys at the A's, but that's because they have openers. They have a lot of free agents.
Oh yeah,
minor free agents, and they can go after it. Or a team like the Orioles, where he first started. Does he go back and kind of give back to the Orioles and be a veteran over there and help them turn? Maybe. Or maybe a team like the Nationals, who are still going to kind of be in a hunt with it because they got pitchers. So maybe he goes there.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of options for him, but I think that the most obvious one is the Dodgers.
That's where I think he's going.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. Number 10, the last guy I want to talk about in the top 10 before we get into kind of just miscellaneous and more obscure maybe free agents is Liam Hendricks, kind of the only one of the big, if not one of the only relievers on the market that teams should really take a look at. I believe he only had one blown save this year with the A's. It was like the first game. So Liam Hendricks is a guy for the last 2 seasons now, has done the job for the A's and done it well. Obviously, his history, Liam Hendricks kind of had to figure it out for a little bit before he got to this point. But I think that he could add, kind of similar to what we mentioned with Hader, I think he could add a lot of value to an already established bullpen. I also could see him going, I mean, we talk about him a lot, but maybe the Angels. He's already familiar with the AL West. He's already familiar with the teams there and the offenses. And you got a team there that could really use a closer. Could really shore up their pitching because the Angels' pitching, it just overall bullpen and starting has been a big question mark for them. So I could see a team like that. I could see you never count the Yankees out with their free agency. So Liam Hendricks, though, has got a lot of value in this free agency.
Yeah, I could see him going to the Yankees as well, just because he doesn't mind not being the closer. I could see him going there. But I think the real team that he goes to is the Phillies. Phillies had like a 7 ERA in the bullpen, and they were still right in the playoff hunt. And they have a good team. So if you go get some bullpen pieces, I mean, now you shored up your biggest weakness. Now you got something. Especially if they don't get Real Muto back, you definitely have money to spend. So why not go get some bullpen pieces? So I think Liam Hendricks can go to the Phillies, or secondary, maybe the Yankees, somewhere in there. But I think Phillies for Hendricks.
Yeah, that would help the Phillies out a lot because they're another team that could use some bullpen assurance.
So that was like your top 10. That's like your best free agents, we think. So the next guys are really good players, but they're kind of like 1A. They're not really talked about as much compared to these top 10. These top 10 are all over the place. You hear that they're free agents all the time. These next guys you don't really, think of right away with these other guys not signed yet. So the first one I want to talk about is Kirby Yates.
Okay.
Great closer, similar to Hendricks. Came on strong the last couple of years, but he got hurt last year or this year. So people kind of forgot about him going free agency. But great pitcher, great closer. I think, I think he can go back to the Padres because of the injury. Knowing the team's good, I think he can go back there. I think he can go to Oakland to fill in for Hendricks because it might be cheaper since he did get hurt. Maybe a cheaper option. Or I think he goes to the Dodgers to help out because they kind of need, Kenley Jensen kind of being a question mark. They can kind of use another guy out there. And another guy I think doesn't really mind if he's the closer or not in Kirby Yates. So I think those are the 3 teams I think he can go to.
Yeah, he would. He's another guy like Liam Hendricks that would fit in anywhere. You really don't need to make him the closer. You can make him a setup man, or he's gonna produce for you.
Sure.
There's a few guys here that, as far as pitching, that I want to talk about, but I actually want to talk a little bit about Charlie Morton, who's a little bit more down my list. I was going to start with Tanaka, but I think, at least for me personally, I think Tanaka is probably going to go back to the Yankees. I really do feel that. I think he's done well with them, and I think he does like New York. So, but I don't want to get too much into someone that I kind of already think is going to go somewhere. But Charlie Morton, I think, is someone that a lot of teams should consider, especially with his playoff experience and his playoff production. Obviously, his last start in the playoffs wasn't what we're used to out of Charlie Morton, but up until then, he's been absolutely unbelievable in the playoffs.
The only thing with Morton is he already said that he is fine with retiring, but he wants to play, but he wants to be in the right situation, a team that he likes, and he wants to stay close to his Florida home.
Okay, so he might just go back to the Rays then,
So my free agent prediction there was he either goes to Miami, because they can always need pitching, and a veteran, or he goes stays in Tampa for a cheaper deal.
Okay, so
but then again, you go to Atlanta, because that's not far, and they need pitching. So there's 3 teams, I think, but he already said he kind of wants to stay home, and he wants to be in the right situation, which is I kind of want to win.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You brought up Atlanta. I think that you get him as your, what would that be for them? Maybe their 3 guy or 4 guy. I mean, you have him in the playoffs. You have Fried, Soroka, and him, and then you got Kyle Wright and Ian Anderson. You've got 5 right there. That's your 5. So. And you bring him in as maybe you don't do what the Rays do and just pitch him 5 innings, and that's just at the end of his day. No matter what, he could have 5 pitches. 5 innings is it. So you stretch him out a little bit. You get 6 or 7 innings out of him in the playoffs. I mean, he's going to be money. He's going to be money.
Or he comes in the bullpen in the playoffs.
Or he comes
3 innings out of the bullpen in the playoffs and just ends the game.
Yeah. So I'm looking more down the line with Charlie Morton as far as obviously he's going to produce in the regular season. There's no doubt about that. But when you're a team that's playoff bound or just about playoff bound like the Braves, you got to look ahead and be like, well, where are we going to be at with our playoff picture? And I think Morton is a guy that I think teams should take more of a look at if he is willing. Like you said, if he's just going to stay in that circle of where he wants to go, then it is what it is. But if he's willing to extend out and maybe go up the East Coast, or maybe go a little more like Rangers, or maybe go back to the Astros or something like that, wouldn't be a bad fit for a lot of those teams.
Yeah. And real quick, you mentioned Tanaka. I don't want to get into Tanaka too much because, we think he does go back to the Yankees. I think the one team that gets him if he doesn't go to the Yankees is the Angels. I mean, the Angels have been the West Coast have been a team for the Japanese and the Chinese players. So he goes out there to the Angels with Ohtani, and a position that the Angels really need. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I just want to be a quick touch up there with Tanaka since you mentioned him. So the next guy I want to get into, quick. This one's gonna be very quick. Is Carlos Santana. We've seen him away from the Indians. Not a bad player. With the Indians, he's a better player. I think Carlos Santana stays with the Indians. Simple reason is, hey, let's keep him. He's a veteran. Let's have him around. We play well because the Indians still kind of want to compete, but they don't want to spend a bunch of money. So they can keep Santana, fan favorite, all that kind of stuff. And if he plays well and the Indians aren't playing great, trade him. So I think you simple get like a 2-year deal out of him, and then trade him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what the Indians do. I think that's, but he is a big free agent because he gets on base a lot. His average is usually lower, but on base a lot, veteran, and he really isn't a terrible fielder. So Carlos Santana, I think goes back to the Indians.
Okay. There's a lot of guys here. I'm kind of jumping around my list here because I got another 10 guys listed. There's some guys that we both got, some guys that I listed that are a little bit kind of like guys like Kevin Gausman and Mike Minor, kind of guys that are going to fly under the radar. But I think that a package deal that both of us really like, I don't know if they're going to go far, but Adam Wainwright and Yachty, I feel like if a team gets him, they're going to get the other guy. It just kind of should seem that way.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to go far. I think they might just end up staying with the Cardinals in the end. So. I think that's what's going to end up happening. But imagine you're a team that's in need of a catcher, in need of a third starter or something like that, a veteran guy, depending on what team it is, and you get both of them. And you get, that combo that is used to winning, they're both still effective, very effective at their age. I think that maybe teams should take a second look at them, and I wonder if a lot of MLB writers and owners and GMs are kind of making them a foregone conclusion. And I don't know if they're getting enough looks that they should. Maybe even just from the writers. I don't see a lot of write-ups about them. Yeah. And especially Yachty, because Yachty Molina is one of the best catchers of all time. And let's be honest, I just seen it before. He's a first-time free agent. Team should really be looking at him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I keep it simple. You named 2 teams that come to mind when you name those. We want a catcher, we want a pitcher, and we want to win. Yankees, they can use a catcher and they can use a pitcher and they want to win. The Braves, they can use a catcher and they want a pitcher and they want to win. And Wainwright's from Atlanta, so if he was going to go somewhere. But I think they can stay together, and I think they stay at St. Louis, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But teams to look at, Yankees and Braves for those two.
Sure.
To go from Molina, you get James McCann, a catcher. I think it goes hand in hand with, we already talked about Realmuto, we already talked about Molina. Whoever loses out on those catcher deals is where he goes. So if the Mets get Realmuto, I got McCann going to the Yankees. If the Yankees get Realmuto, I got McCann going to the Mets. I think that's pretty much where we stand with those.
Okay.
But even if Molina leaves St. Louis, maybe he goes to St. Louis. So whoever loses out on these catchers, they'll get him.
Yeah.
That's where I see with James McCann.
Yeah, and James McCann, people should be looking more at than they are. I think he's valuable.
Yeah, and he plays first base at a high level if you need him to.
Yeah, which is, a lot of catchers, that is their second position is first base. But I mean, hey, if you have a guy that is proven to do it, then that adds a lot of value.
Sure.
Jump around a little bit here. I think James Paxton is another guy that, obviously you worry about. He was a little injured this year, didn't really pitch much at all, and didn't pitch very effectively. His fastball velocity was down because of the lack of strength in his arm from his surgery and not being able to throw and all that stuff. But Paxton, you can see him going to a lot of teams. I mean, there's a guy fit for the Angels. You can see going like that. Big Maple, go to the Blue Jays. That makes sense for him. So there's Yankees could get him back. If say they lose out on Tanaka or something, there's maybe your plan 1A. Yeah. He's already used to the Yankees. I mean, there's a lot of teams you can list off that need pitchers.
Yeah. I think you need a bunch of teams right there. I think the Angels, he really fits in that uniform. Fits that organization. Mm-hmm. Toronto, of course, and San Diego. Need pitchers. So keep putting him involved in them all. He's a good pitcher, and he's still somewhat young, and he's still good. So someone could go out and get him on a cheaper deal and really win that deal. A pitcher that goes hand in hand with him, I think, is Corey Kluber. Surgery, what do you do? What does he come back? What's he look like? Mm-hmm. So two teams I think Kluber can go to is Boston. I think really what Boston needs pitching, and Boston signing quarterback, they're telling their team, they're telling their player, they're telling their fans that they're ready to win. They didn't go away from him. They didn't bring him back to rebuild. They brought him back because he's a winning coach. They think he's a winning coach. So they want to win. So Kluber to Boston makes sense. Or a team like Detroit. Where Detroit got some veterans last year they signed and wanted to keep the team somewhat competitive. I think they're going to keep doing that. And while these prospects grow, you get a guy like Kluber who can teach anybody. Look at the Indians.
Yeah.
You can say, coaching, but having a veteran like that kind of helps. You go there and you can maybe teach Fulmer. Maybe he helps out with some of those guys. Mm-hmm. Big piece. So I think he goes to Detroit or Boston. I think it would be great spots for him.
Okay. I've only got another few guys here that I really do want to mention because we could be here all night talking about a lot of these guys. But one of my favorite players in the league that I hated to see leave the Yankees, Didi Gregorius. He's actually, I think, one of the bigger prospects. I actually have him a little higher on my list, but I just forgot to mention him here. I've mentioned him kind of all episode here, but the Angels, losing Simmons, you get Didi Gregorius, who's a guy you add to that lineup. You add a lefty. You add a guy that's great defensively. Kind of, you don't miss much there with losing Simmons. I think that he would fit a winning environment or a potential winning environment. I think that it makes total sense for him to go back to the Phillies. I think that he produced well there. I don't know how well the fans took to him because there were no fans in the stands, but I would imagine fans at home that were watching took to him a little bit. I feel like it's hard to not like Didi.
Well, and Girardi's there.
Yeah, and that's a guy he's familiar with. So I think that there's some options there for Didi, but I kind of do think he stays with the Phillies. I think he ends up back with them.
Yeah, I think a team you could look at other than the Angels. I think it's obviously with Simmons possibly leaving, Cincinnati. Again, it goes hand in hand with if they get Lindor, obviously not. If they don't get Lindor, why not get Cincinnati? And it's where he started. It's where he started with Cincinnati. So why not circle the wagons essentially. Another player. Another two guys I want to kind of mention. They go hand in hand. Jose Quintana and John Lester. Two veteran lefties. I think Quintana can go back to the White Sox. Again, circle the wagons. They need a veteran pitcher, end of the rotation guy, veteran, consistent. That's what you get at Quintana. He's been there. And a guy like Lester could easily go to the White Sox as well. So one of those two guys I think ends up with the White Sox. I think Lester, again, circles the wagons, goes to Boston. Goes home. They need pitching. Why not? Or he goes to the Angels. They need pitching. Joe Madden's there. There you go. They go hand in hand. And kind of a team that needs to learn how to win. Lester's a guy who knows how to win. Did it with the Cubs. Kind of brought winning with him. Why not him go there? So those two players that kind of go hand in hand. I think they could easily go to any one of those teams.
Yeah.
Those two guys want they'll go to someone.
Sure. I guess I'll just do one more guy here because my list is there's basically no one left. I'll do one more guy here. I know you don't have him on your list, but Jock Peterson was actually big for the Dodgers. I know. I think he went a little maybe underappreciated would be for lack of a better term, but Jock Peterson actually did very well for the Dodgers in the playoffs this year. A guy who you look at, you take at face value, and you say, oh well, he's got a big uppercut swing. He's kind of home run or nothing guy, but he does have some defensive value. He does have obviously his value in his power, and he did prove that when you need him in the playoffs, he's there. So you get a guy like that. I could see him obviously going back to Dodgers. He seems to just fit that uniform, fit that environment. Kind of almost having him and Bellinger in that lineup almost seemed just appropriate. Kind of both the same type of guy.
Well, like
big,
the Ethier kind of thing, where you just don't see Ethier leaving the
yeah,
Dodgers.
It's just,
he never did.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Peterson is getting not getting a lot of talk here. He's actually towards the bottom of my list, and I think he does hold a lot of value. So I could see Jock Peterson going to quite a few teams, but I think he does end up coming back around to the Dodgers, and he just stays there.
I could see him going there, maybe the White Sox again. He was part of that. Maybe going to the White Sox, so I could see him kind of going there. Maybe a team like Philly or the Indians take a flyer on him or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe something like that. But
sure.
So to kind of rapid fire get through some of these guys left here, so, we could be here for hours really analyzing this stuff a little harder like we did earlier.
Yeah.
I just want to rapid fire some names and where they can go. Jackie Bradley Jr., Houston, fills Springer's hole. There you go.
Yeah.
At a cheaper price. Todd Frazier.
Yeah.
Veteran guy, he knows how to win, goofy, whatever. Could he go to the Yankees again? I think he could. I think he wants to stay East Coast where he's from. He's obviously from our area and Tom's River here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Toronto, he also could fit.
Yeah.
Up and coming team. He could fill both corner spots. Wherever Vlad doesn't play, he could play. I think another player here to throw out, Colton Wong.
Yeah.
Does he go back to the Cardinals? I think he could. I think some reason he really fits a Padres uniform. I feel like if he could fit with the Padres, go play second base for them. I feel like that could fit.
Yeah,
Cardinals,
I see it.
or Pittsburgh, a team who's up and coming and maybe could use a couple free agents and kind of really really go with this team with Josh Bell and some other guys, Brian Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a guy like that. Daniel Murphy, I think he can go back to the Nationals. They can use a first baseman. He hit great there. He just fit there. Or he goes to Miami, another team that's kind of up and coming and ready to go, and a veteran who knows how to hit and play, and he can kind of teach and lead. So that's another guy I wanted to mention. Some other ones, Simmons, we kind of already talked about. He's going to go kind of wherever the other guys don't go. He could go to Yankees, give them that defensive shortstop they need. He could go to Oakland if Simeon's gone. He can go to the Reds if they lose out on any of those other shortstops.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of shortstops that can kind of go hand in hand. Adam Eaton, free agent, I think goes back to Arizona.
Okay.
They got rid of Marte, Starlin Marte, so they can use an outfielder. And kind of, again, a lot of these guys circle the wagons where he started, Arizona. Why not go back? And a team that play well, you trade them and get prospects for or value for. Two guys that go hand in hand, Nelson Cruz, Edwin Encarnacion. Where do they go? Cruz could easily go back to Minnesota. I think that makes the most sense. He can go to the Rangers, give him that righty power mentioned earlier, somewhere he's home. Atlanta, they lose Ozuna. Let's go get this guy, of course, with the DH, if the universal DH comes back. And Milwaukee could use power, especially with Braun out the door. Encarnacion goes hand in hand. He goes to some of those teams. I think Pittsburgh, again, a veteran player who can kind of teach. Or Milwaukee, again. I just mentioned with Cruz. He fits that power that they lose. Let's see, some other players we can mention. Alex Colomé. I think he stays with the White Sox. If he doesn't go to the White Sox, Cincinnati, they need bullpen help. A lot of these relievers are all going to fit the same teams here. So get ready for that. Shane Green, Detroit, because he was great there. Why not go back there? You were great. You were the closer. Why not go back there? Dodgers, obviously. He's the guy who doesn't care if he saves or not, so why not go to the Dodgers?
Yeah.
Mark Melanson, Atlanta, simple. I don't think he leaves.
Yeah.
Rosenthal, bunch of questions here. He can go to Boston. They need help. San Diego, he was good there. Atlanta, if you lose Shane Green, why not get him?
Yeah.
Or Oakland. If you lose out on Hendricks, why not get Rosenthal, cheaper version?
Yeah.
Brad Hand, who really should be higher on our list because he's one of the best relievers in baseball, and he's a lefty. Angels.
Yeah.
There's your closer. Boom, done.
Yeah.
Done. You could go to the Dodgers,
Yeah.
obviously, or the White Sox if they lose out on Colomé. So, but I think the Angels, they should go out and get him.
Yeah. Sure.
Doolittle, Mets. I mean, does Doolittle fit a Mets uniform?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Why not get him? Done. Lefty. Simple. Justin Wilson, Mets.
Mm-hmm.
Mets love him. Pitch good for the Mets. Keep him. Simple.
Yeah.
But Mets, everything but simple, but new owner, so we'll see. Tony Watson, Cincinnati. Or stays with the Giants.
Yeah. Just finish out his career with the Giants or something.
Yeah. Cincinnati needs bullpen help, though, so Cincinnati. Jose Alvarez, Cincinnati or Minnesota. They need bullpen help. One of those two teams. So some of these teams, whoever they lose out on, if you lose out on Cincinnati and a couple of these players, you're going to get the other couple players. You see, they all kind of go hand in hand. And another guy I want to mention, J.A. Happ. People go, he doesn't. A veteran guy. He's a lefty. Not many lefties out there. He can go to Philly, kind of where he started. Detroit, help lead, be a veteran. Pittsburgh, to help lead, be a veteran. Kansas City, help lead, be a veteran. And if he pitches good, you trade him, get value. It all makes sense. So you want to look at, where they could fit and where they could make sense and what they could do with them halfway through the season. So that's kind of what we looked at with some of these players. And that's pretty much all the guys I wanted to mention. Actually, one last one. Kike Hernandez. I think he stays with the Dodgers, but I do think he wants to play more. And I think he has earned that in some aspects.
Yeah, he's a nice little player that people don't really. He just kind of is relegated to the
lefty guy.
like kind of your extra option off the bench. Yeah.
So I could see him staying with the Dodgers, Cleveland, because they still want to be competitive, so they can go Cleveland. Then if they're good, they can trade them. Angels, Joe Madden loves you versatility guys.
Yeah, sure.
Or he can go to the Rays because they love versatility. Go to the A's, they love versatility. So you can add a bunch of those teams in. But I think he stays with the Dodgers or goes to the Indians. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I think that's all the guys I kind of wanted to mention. I know we kind of sped run through those last ones, but there's just so many people and so many moves, and they all go. A lot of these tie together. Some of these relievers, if one goes here, he's not going to go there. The shortstops, we got 7 shortstops we talked about. If he goes there, he's not going to go there. So they all tie together as much as our trades did. But that's how, obviously, any sport is and how offseason goes. It kind of ties all together. If they get a shortstop, well, you're not going to. Cincinnati gets this shortstop, they're not going to get the other 3 shortstops.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think, at least.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You would think not.
But yeah, it's going to be a crazy offseason because I don't know how much spending there's going to be. I don't know how many long-term deals there's going to be because of the shortened season and because of the CBA coming up.
Yeah.
Why sign a 7-year deal when in a year the CBA could come up, they could sign a better deal, and you get more money?
Yeah, it's tough for a lot of these guys right now. It's a tough
why
spot.
Lock yourself in. Maybe give like a 2-year deal. It's a 5-year deal with a 2-year deal and then an opt-out. Then you can kind of opt in, opt out, whatever, and kind of cash in or keep making your money.
Yeah.
So I think it could be a crazy offseason. I think trades are going to come flying with the winter meetings. Kind of weird. I think it could be slow at first, but I think there's some big names that are going to get traded, and it's going to be a big offseason.
Yeah.
I just don't know if you're going to see that 7, 8, 9, 10-year deal. But there's guys out there who could definitely deserve it. So.
Yeah. The trade market, I think, is going to be flying, and I think you might see the trade market be a lot more active than the free agent season, the free agent market. Just because, like we said, like you said, the teams losing money. The market's just not there. You said with the CBA coming up, the market's just not there for a lot of guys. So it's going to be tough. I do feel bad for some of these guys. That a lot of these guys are young, and this is the time to make their money, and it may not happen for them. So I do feel bad for some of these guys.
Yeah, it's tough, but they're big leaders. They're making a bunch of money, and they'll ride out. If they have to take a 1-2-year deal, then they will, and then they'll cash out in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a good offseason. You got guys like Robbie Ray already stayed with the Blue Jays. Already signed a 1-year deal. A guy also I actually missed, Taijuan Walker. Could he go to Toronto? He could stay there. Boston, again, needs pitching. Or the Yankees, I think, would be a great fit.
Yeah.
But so there's going to be pieces. Once a couple of these pieces fall, the rest of them, I think, will start falling. Some of the bigger pieces might wait. That's kind of how it goes. But it should be a crazy offseason as much as it was a crazy year.
Yeah.
Once we get to 2021, hopefully things will kind of calm back down a little bit and get back to normal years. But for this little stretch of 2020, for the offseason, I think it could be crazy. But 2021, I think, might come and maybe calm things down a little bit in this world.
Let's hope so.
But that's pretty much it. I know it got a little crazy there at the end. Sped run through a bunch of names and scenarios, but we couldn't sit here. We could sit here for 30 hours and analyze all this and be wrong on every single one.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is too is we don't know where once the pieces start to fall, then targets become more clear. We could talk about all day how the Angels could get just about every position on the field, but once
still be 500 and miss the playoffs. That's just the Angels' way.
But the thing is that once say the Angels do get Bauer, then all of a sudden we projected that Stroman could be a potential candidate there, or Taijuan Walker or something like that. Those start to fall off the board a little bit for them because they got the guy. So same thing with the shortstops thing. Any shortstop really could go there now. But once they get one, obviously there goes the projections for the other one. So once the pieces start to fall, things become more clear for other teams once the big guys go.
Sure. So I think that's pretty much it, I think.
That's all I got.
Yeah. So let's get into our last little bit, and that's the trivia question. And I wanted to kind of keep it relative to what's going on with awards be given out this week, and we'll find out more who wins them pretty shortly. I wanted to stick with that. And this week's trivia question is, who is the oldest player to win a Cy Young Award? And the answer is Roger Clemens. He was 42 years old in 2004. He went 18-4 with the Astros with a 2.98 ERA and 218 strikeouts.
God.
Great year at 42 years old. Second was Gaylord Perry. He was 40 years old. He pitched till he was like 130. And you guys got Randy Johnson was up there. I think even Greg Maddux won one later in his career, I believe.
You would think, yeah, knowing him.
But so there's some guys you think, oh, they had it win, but it's Roger Clemens.
Yeah.
And he, winning 58 Cy Youngs, you'd think one of them would be when he was older. He had 7 of them, I believe. So same with Randy Johnson, I think he had 5. So you'd think one of them he had to be pretty old.
Yeah.
But so the oldest player to win a Cy Young is Roger Clemens at the age of 42 years old.
Yeah, a little surprising. Once you said it, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I just didn't. He didn't immediately pop in my head because.
No, he didn't. I thought of Gaylord Perry, and I was like, Randy Johnson, and then I was like, all right, Dickey. Then I was like, Roger Clemens. I was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you hear it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
But it surprised you at first. But then you're like, that's right.
Yeah, because he was that good for that long, really. Yeah. So, all right, well, if unless you got any final notes, final things to say here, I'm good to wrap it up. I got nothing else for you.
That's pretty much it. I mean, we already kind of talked about what we're planning on doing next week. We're going to do like a wrap-up of the season, talk about the awards, who actually won them, and we'll go into some stuff, and we'll talk about the off-season more. So that's kind of what next week's going to be like. And our last little update here is the Raiders won again, 5-3, beat the Chargers on the last play of the game. Thank God. And they're playing good. Like I said, they're 5-3. They could play home against Denver this week. And right now, they're right in the playoff spot, wild card, and 2 games behind the Chiefs. With a game against the Chiefs coming up again in 2 weeks. So let's see if we can beat them again. But
yeah, that'd be really nice.
It'd be fantastic. But yeah, they won again, and they're playing good. So that's a little football update.
There you go.
And Mike, I can give your Giants update for you. The what was the word? Not good. But they did win. They beat a team that's not good, and that's that's it for them.
And they're almost in first.
Which is, what word is it? Not good.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
All right then. We're gonna check out the Jets here, who unbelievably.
And what word do you want to describe them in?
There's a lot of words you can use for them.
Well, let's just use not good.
Yeah, let's use that again. All right then. Let's wrap this thing up and get out of here. So, thank you guys for listening. You can check this podcast out on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Podcasts and Spotify. You can also listen to this podcast on our regularly updated YouTube channel, as well as our website, screwball.podbean.com. You can follow me on Twitter at RealMikeLepre. You can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lepre.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FDubs10.
You can follow our official Screwball Twitter at ScrewballPod. You can follow our official Screwball Facebook at ScrewballPod. No E in Screw. And that's it from us, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yep. Take care.